was late, probably pushing midnight, and the snow was coming down in thick, hypnotic flakes, muffling the world in a blanket of white. I was somewhere in the vast, empty stretch of Montana, on a two-lane highway that cut a lonely black ribbon through an endless expanse of forest and ranch land. The rhythmic thump, thump, thump of my windshield wipers was the only sound besides the low hum of the engine, and the high beams of my pickup truck were the only light for miles, cutting a tunnel through the swirling darkness. I hadn't seen another car for at least an hour. Cell service was a distant memory. There was just me, the truck, and the immense, silent wilderness. It was the kind of profound isolation that can be either peaceful or deeply unsettling. That night, it was leaning heavily toward the latter. As I rounded a long, sweeping curve, my headlights caught something on the shoulder ahead. It was another truck, a slightly older Ford, pulled over at a strange angle, its front end nosed slightly toward the ditch. But that wasn't the weird part. The driver's side door was wide open, swinging gently in the wind, and the dome light cast a pale, ghostly glow onto the falling snow. My first thought was that they'd broken down or hit a patch of ice. I slowed down, my own truck crunching on the salted road, and pulled up about 50 feet behind it. I flicked on my hazards, their amber flashes painting the scene in a surreal, strobing light. "Hey, you all right?" I yelled out my window, but the only answer was the sigh of the wind through the pines. Something felt wrong, deeply wrong. The open door was like a gaping mouth, and the silence that followed my shout was heavy and absolute. Against my better judgment, I killed my engine, grabbed my heavy-duty flashlight from the glove box, and stepped out into the biting cold. The snow was a good 6 inches deep on the ground, pristine and unbroken, except for the area around the abandoned truck. As I got closer, the beam of my flashlight revealed more unsettling details. The truck was empty. The keys were still in the ignition. A half-full coffee cup sat in the center console, a wisp of steam still faintly rising from it. It was fresh. This hadn't happened hours ago. This had happened minutes ago. On the passenger seat lay a worn leather wallet and a cell phone. No one in their right mind would just leave their wallet and phone behind. My heart started thudding against my ribs. My flashlight beam cut across the snow, and that's when I saw them. A single set of footprints leading away from the open driver's door. They didn't go down the road or back the way the truck had come. They led straight off the shoulder and into the dark, dense wall of trees that lined the highway. Curiosity, or maybe just a stupid sense of civic duty, got the better of me. I thought maybe the guy had to relieve himself or got disoriented. I was a big guy. I could handle myself, I reasoned. I followed the tracks, my own boots sinking deep into the powder. The footprints were clear and steady, leading me about 20 yards into the forest. The air grew still, the sound of the wind blocked by the thick canopy of pine boughs heavy with snow. It was eerily quiet, too quiet. My flashlight beam danced between the trees, revealing nothing but more snow and more darkness. The tracks continued, unwavering, deeper into the black. I paused, took a breath, and called out again, "Hello, anyone out there? Need a hand?" The silence that answered was so profound it felt like a physical presence. And then a feeling washed over me. It wasn't a thought. It was a primal, gut-level certainty that I was in terrible danger. Every hair on my arm stood on end. My skin went cold. It felt like 1,000 unseen eyes were locked onto me from the impenetrable darkness just beyond the reach of my light. The feeling was so intense, so immediate, that I didn't even question it. I didn't hear a sound or see a thing, but I knew, with the kind of certainty you have for your own name, that I had to leave. Right now. I didn't turn and walk. I spun on my heel and scrambled back the way I came, stumbling through the snow, not daring to look behind me. The short distance back to the road felt like a mile. I half expected to feel a hand grab my shoulder, to hear footsteps pounding in the snow behind me. I practically vaulted back into my truck, slammed the door, and locked it. My hands were shaking so badly, I fumbled with the keys for a moment before the engine roared back to life. I threw the truck in drive and stomped on the gas, fishtailing on the slick road before the tires caught. I didn't look in my rearview mirror until I was a good 5 miles down the highway, my heart hammering like it wanted out of my chest. I drove for another hour until I finally found a 24-hour gas station in a small town. I told the clerk what I'd seen, and he called the sheriff. I gave my statement, still rattled, and then continued on my way, trying to put the bizarre encounter out of my mind. About a week later, back home, I saw an article online from a Montana news outlet. The headline sent a chill down my spine: "Missing man found murdered." The picture was of the man whose wallet I had seen on the passenger seat. The article said his abandoned truck was found on a remote highway. He'd been lured out of his vehicle and killed. His body was discovered in the woods, not far from where he'd left the road. The police believed the killer had been waiting for him, hidden among the trees, right where I'd been standing, right where I felt those eyes on me. The tracks I was following weren't just a man walking into the woods, they were his last steps leading him into a trap, and I had been standing on the edge of it, moments after it had been sprung. The air in Hawaii is different at night. During the day, it's hot and bright, smelling of sunscreen and salt. But after midnight, it becomes something else entirely. Thick, heavy, and fragrant with the scent of unseen flowers and damp earth. My wife, Sarah, was asleep in the passenger seat, and our 5-year-old son, Leo, was dead to the world in his car seat in the back. We were on Maui, driving the serpentine coastal road back to our rental after a long, perfect day. The road was a sliver of asphalt carved into the side of a volcanic cliff. On my left, a wall of impenetrable jungle rose straight up. On my right, there was nothing but a flimsy guardrail and a sheer drop to the Pacific, where the waves crashed against the rocks hundreds of feet below. The moon was nearly full, casting a brilliant silver path across the black water. It was hypnotically beautiful. "Hey," I whispered, gently nudging Sarah's shoulder. "Wake up. You have to see this." She stirred, blinking in the dim glow of the dashboard. "What is it?" "Look," I said, slowing the car to a crawl. Up ahead, there was a small, unpaved pull-off, barely big enough for one car. It looked out over a perfect, moonlit cove. I carefully pulled the car in and shut off the engine. The sudden silence was immense, filled only by the distant, rhythmic roar of the ocean below. "Wow," Sarah breathed, now fully awake. "This is incredible." We got out of the car, stretching in the cool, humid air. The view was staggering. We stood there for a few minutes, just soaking it in, feeling like the only two people on the planet. And then I heard it. It was faint, almost carried away by the wind, a thin, wavering sound. "Did you hear that?" I asked. Sarah tilted her head. "Hear what?" "I just hear the ocean." I held up a hand, listening intently. It came again, a little clearer this time, a high-pitched, desolate cry. "It sounds like a baby," I said, the words feeling absurd as they left my mouth. Sarah's expression shifted from placid wonder to confusion. "A baby? Out here?" She glanced back at the car, where Leo was still sound asleep, his chest rising and falling steadily. "It's not Leo." The sound pierced the night again, more insistent now. It was undeniably the cry of an infant, a desperate, helpless wail. A cold knot formed in my stomach. We were miles from the nearest town, on a treacherous road in the middle of the night. There was no house, no camp, no other car, no reason for a baby to be out here. "Someone must have had an accident," Sarah said, her voice tight with alarm. "Maybe a car went over the edge." Panic flared in my chest. We both rushed to the guardrail, peering down into the darkness. The moonlight only illuminated the churning white foam of the waves. We couldn't see any wreckage, no headlights beneath the water. The crying continued, seeming to echo from the cliff face itself, a sound that was both everywhere and nowhere at once. "Hello," I shouted, my voice sounding small against the vastness of the ocean. "Is anyone there?" Only the baby's cry answered, unwavering. "We have to look," Sarah said, already grabbing the powerful flashlight from the car's glove box. For the next hour, we searched. We swept the flashlight beam down the sheer rock face, hoping to catch a glimpse of a trapped vehicle or a person clinging to a ledge. Nothing. The sound was maddening. Sometimes it seemed to come from right below us, then it would seem to drift from the dense jungle across the road. We called out until our throats were raw. I started to feel a different kind of fear creep in. The logical part of my brain was running out of explanations. The crying never stopped, never changed in pitch or intensity. It didn't sound like a real baby's cry anymore. A real baby would get tired, would have to take a breath. This was a loop, a perfect mechanical sound of distress that went on and on and on. I scrambled along the edge of the road, pointing the light into the thick, wet leaves of the jungle. The beam revealed nothing but a wall of tangled roots and giant ferns. The crying seemed to be coming from just inside the tree line now. "Mark, come back," Sarah called, her voice trembling. She was standing by the car, her arms wrapped around herself. "I don't like this. Something's wrong." She was right. The concern for a person in distress was being replaced by a primal, chilling dread. The beautiful, romantic spot now felt hostile, ancient, and deeply menacing. The air was cold, and the sound of the crying was starting to feel like a lure. I backed away from the jungle's edge, my heart hammering. As I got back to the car, the crying sounded like it was right next to me, just on the other side of the guardrail. I flinched, expecting to see something, but there was only empty space and the long drop to the sea. "Get in the car," I said, my voice low and urgent. We practically threw ourselves inside, locking the doors. As I fumbled to start the engine, the crying sounded impossibly close, as if it were coming from directly under our car. I slammed the car into drive and peeled out of the pull-off, tires spinning on the loose gravel. I drove faster than I should have on that winding road, not speaking, not daring to look in the rearview mirror. Sarah was staring straight ahead, her face pale in the dashboard light. We didn't slow down until the lights of the town appeared in the distance, a welcome orange glow against the oppressive darkness. We never heard the crying again. We never found an explanation. Locals we cautiously asked later spoke of Menehune, of ancient spirits, of ghost stories tied to those cliffs, but we didn't need a name for it. All I know is that for an hour on a moonlit cliff in the most beautiful place on earth, we stood on the edge of a nightmare and listened to its invitation.